I created a fake religion, put my dear friend Carmichael into the role of a dime store L. Ron Hubbard, and presto, what better way to lure pure young boys into my fold than to open up a high-tech Bible school?
To Boys Bible Study. I'm Ash. I'm here with my co-hosts,
Scott
and Julian.
And joining us today for the third time is our dear friend, Snoopy, the host of the podcast Trans Regret Snoopy Presents the Bible. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, so I noticed, Snoopy and I are friends on the Bible app. Okay. Which there's actually there's a social concept. There's like a friend adding mode. And Snoopy, I happened to notice yesterday that you signed up to multiple reading plans. One was called Understanding Evil. And the other is called, I thought I literally took a screenshot because it was so funny. I got 2 screenshots within 15 minutes of each other. That was Snoopy is reading Understanding Evil. And then Snoopy is reading something, I don't know, something about sin. Anyway, I wanted to know what you were investigating these days.
The other plan was called When the Devil Knocks.
There it is. Yeah, that was it.
If this devil's a rockin', don't come a knocking.
It was partially inspired by the lovely movie that we all watched for for this episode. But it was also inspired by a little bit of scripture that I had been reading. I'm going back through Romans again, which I do on a pretty much yearly basis. I can't shake it. But in Romans 16, there's a little bit where the prophecy of Genesis that says that the serpent will be crushed under the heel is passed on to the church. And so I thought, what does that really mean to crush evil under the heel? Where do I find that evil, and how do I crush it under my heel? So I was joking.
Yeah, and is there room for one more under that heel?
Yeah, come on, let's do this. We're gonna get kinky early on in this episode.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. So do these plans? They have a lot to do with Romans.
Those particular ones mention Romans and obviously other places too. It's after watching the movie, I don't want to get into it right away because I feel like there's a little bit of introduction that I think folks need to hear about. But I do want to say the Bible app's social function is so hilariously flawed in so many ways. Not only does it notify every single one of your friends when you sign up for a new plan, but it's also impossible to find your friends on that app unless you search for them for a really long time. And you have to if you're trying to start a plan and you don't want a notification to go out to everybody, you have to change all of your settings and they have to change theirs. It's a very it's a very weird app. Yeah, it's not great.
I think that's how you know it's legit though, because it's one of those things. It's don't trust a church if their website is too up to date. I don't want to go to a church where the website is immaculately designed on Squarespace or something. I want a church that looks there's still bulletin items on the front page from 2006.
Yeah, it's like an Angel Fire website.
Did you see? Did y'all see that? That younger person who became the patron saint of the internet?
Yes.
His website looked like a fucking GeoCities.
Yeah.
thing.
Oh my God.
The bar is very low in the Vatican.
Carlo Acutis. I don't think he's officially a saint yet. He was, and you might know this the terminology a little better than me, Snoopy, but I think he was beatified.
Yeah, that's an aspect of the Catholic Church that I actually know very little about, and it's a little bit confusing to me because I thought that it had to do with whether or not a miracle could be proven, they were responsible for some kind of miracle, and I can't tell what the miracle would have been for. I know that he did some very cool things with early internet, basically turning young people onto the church and teaching them all about different aspects of of the historical church. But other than that, I don't understand why that would qualify someone to become a saint.
So I'm reading he was officially beatified in the town of Assisi, where he's buried. And
with John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Well, you might have noticed that he was using a different foot in that famous picture when they were walking across the road. But there was some kind of miracle attributed to him.
He got the Wi-Fi working again.
Jesus.
He thought of the Bible app.
Yeah. Yeah. But honestly, love Carlo Acutis. Like, I don't have a ton of an urge to convert to Catholicism. I'm sort of happy being like a dirty Protestant, but I've got to say, like, I find that to be really cool. Wait, Snoopy, sorry for just like saying random shit, but Snoopy, did I tell you about the Catholic missionaries who tried to convert me to Catholicism in the parking lot of the church supply store?
No. What happened?
I went to the church supply store to buy supplies for our live show because I bought like offertory baskets and like, just all sorts of shit. And I met this couple who were like missioning outside, missioning 2 people at the Catholic supply store, which I thought was like pretty low hanging fruit, honestly.
It's a little lazy. Yeah.
But they actually got their mark.
They just got a quota to meet.
Yeah. But like they actually found a good mark in me because, like, first of all, I will talk to them because like my Uber wasn't going to get there for 10 minutes. So I was like, of course I'll talk to these people. And then they were like, oh, what like parish are you affiliated with? And I was like, I'm actually not. I was raised Lutheran. And they were like, oh.
I'm so sorry.
and the guy was like, the man was like, they must have been in there,
put
like
his hand on his gun.
Yeah. But they were like, well, when Martin Luther broke away from the church, he called that a reform, but that wasn't what it was. That was actually a schism, And I was like, yeah, I've been thinking about it, I don't remember what I said.
One man's reform is another man's schism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, some sort of twisted Catholic theology in the film that we had Snoopy watch with us today.
Yeah.
A little bit of, it was plucking from a couple different traditions and kind of subverting them, but we're definitely curious to see where you stand on the weird, like, Catholic elements that were interpolated into this film. But before we get into that, a little introduction, as you suggested, about Voodoo Academy, which is our film for the week. Scott, I was really hoping you could talk about the director and some notable things about him, because he's a very interesting character.
I would love to talk about the director, David DeCoteau. I've been calling him David DeCoteau until like yesterday, but it's DeCoteau.
DeCoteau. Okay. Good to know.
Thanks to the DVD introduction of Voodoo Academy.
Whoa, there's an intro?
Yeah, it's I was hoping it would be good enough that it would be worth sharing with y'all, but he is not very charismatic. There's a reason he's behind the camera.
Sure.
But he's been making movies since like the 80s. He's always done it in a low budget, but there is a budget fashion. Started with like the straight to home video market, made a lot of full moon pictures. A lot of his movies are very homoerotic, and
I didn't pick up on that.
He's made just so many movies. I like maybe over 200, maybe over 300. I don't know, but. Lately, the thing he's been doing the past few years is making Lifetime movies with Vivica A. Fox. They do a series called The Wrong Movies, and it'll be like The Wrong Valentine, The Wrong Real Estate Agent, The Wrong Mommy, etc., etc. And he's great. I love him. He's the kind of guy who knows how to make a movie in a week and have me watching it a week later.
Yeah, David DeCoteau. No, he's a real king. Another random thing I like about him is that, I mean, he's definitely a gay guy. I mean, I think
Yes.
that's pretty obvious. Despite the heterosexuality he throws into his movies sort of as an afterthought, it's clear he's a gay guy. If you Google him, the first picture that comes up is him doing one of those inane, like, no hate profile pictures. Do you know what I mean,
With, like,
Snoopy?
the duct tape over his
it's-
mouth.
Do you know what I mean?
It's his profile picture on IMDb.
Yeah. It's like,
This is from like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
well, it has to be more at this point. Like, it literally has to be like 2006 or 7. Like, this is like early Facebook era, like internet activism, which is when I don't really know the origins, but you were supposed to like claim to be against homophobia by putting duct tape on your mouth and like taking a photo with like the white balance turned like all the way up. I don't really understand.
I think it was the gay marriage bill
Prop
in
8.
California. Yeah.
It was Prop 8. That's why
It was
there's an
Prop
8
8,
and
yeah.
no hate. But like, incredible. So yeah, how long was that? Literally like 2004 or 5 or 6 or something. Like, it's really been that long.
Yeah.
It's
It's been a while.
yeah.
Is this the era of like Jennifer Lawrence's gay rights?
Oh yeah. I wonder when that was from. Exactly.
What is that one?
There's this famous, like, internet famous photo of Jennifer Lawrence where it's just her smiling, and underneath it says in quotation marks, "gay rights!" exclamation point, Jennifer Lawrence. And
Profound.
it really is. I like when, actors use their platform to make a statement like that. But yeah, David DeCoteau, also famous for the A Talking Cat
Yes.
movies, which seem to have a reputation, even among people who might not study outsider movies as intently as we do, or some of our listeners do. I have had multiple people be like, "Oh, you got to see this crazy movie called A Talking Cat." It's just like a cat with Eric Roberts' voice over it. And, it's set in a mansion, the same mansion where like all of David DeCoteau's films from this particular era are set. Like, he clearly just uses it as the location for every film. And it's great.
Yeah, it says here that in the year 2017, he made the movie A Christmas Cruise. In the year 2018, he made the movie Puppet Master, Blitzkrieg Massacre.
He's got
That's
range.
my guy.
Yeah, he's got range. That's like the thing about him. Recently, Scott showed me this movie almost eerily similar to Voodoo Academy. What was it called? Ring of Darkness?
That's the one.
Yeah. This type of Y2K era DeCoteau movie is about like, let's get all the boys together and let's do a ritual with them. Like, that's sort of is like his MO when he's making a movie in the Y2K type era. Yeah, so he's like a patron saint of our podcast, really. We frequently refer to him as an influence, so it's cool to be doing one of his more religious movies. So where should we start with this one, Scott?
Very religious movie.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say we start by walking through the doors of that small Bible college.
Yeah.
That is the same house he's used in so many movies.
Carmichael Bible College is the name of this place. Snoopy, do you have any experience with Bible colleges?
I don't. I've thought about going to one, to be honest, but nothing like the Carmichael Bible College, I don't think. 6 students at this one, right?
Yeah.
Very small group.
Yeah. Only 5 at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we followed the 6th student.
There were 6.
There were 6. The former 6th one was killed during a hands-free ejaculating accident.
No, they found his
He was
replacement.
milked
pretty
a little
quick.
too hard.
Yeah. His pelvic floor examination went awry.
This is why you don't buy the cow when the milk is free.
Jesus Christ. It's a little tough for me to keep in mind the names of all the different boys in this movie.
But they were so unique.
Right. Yeah, there was the blonde one, of course. How could we forget the blonde one?
The other blonde one. Oh, right.
The other blonde one. The one who was a little more muscular than all the other muscular ones.
That was Rusty.
They were all ripped, but there was one guy who lifted weights. So
Yeah.
they were like, you're always working out.
Yeah.
No, they clearly are also always working out.
Yeah. What did we think of the interview process for this Bible college? Because that was something that immediately caught me off guard.
When the main character shows up, his name is Chris, right? Did I get that right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's got to be. Mhm.
Christopher Sawyer.
Christopher Sawyer, yes, which is a normal, not porn name for, you know. So when Christopher Sawyer shows up, the admissions person is also the only other person that's around. There's no one in reception because there is no reception because it's someone's house, right? And then they sit down and she asks him for a moment to look over his file. Like, she didn't know who he was and she didn't know anything about him, but she had to like look through it all. And in the 30 seconds that it takes for her to do that, she immediately decides you are Carmichael Bible College material.
Yeah.
She had just been interviewing Tom Cruise right before that.
I love that low budget movie technique of having to quickly explain why there's no other people here. Which is, you know, something that directors of outsider films have to get around all the time. In this case, it was like, oh yeah, it's an experimental new program. We're just starting out. We're only taking 6 students. I like also the idea of like interviewing for college, and I can't remember how expensive college was in the year 2000. I'm sure it was still pretty expensive, but I like showing up for a college admissions interview to have the administrator tell you, we're still kind of figuring things out over here. and then you making a decision on the spot and then immediately getting moved into the dorm room.
He didn't have a suitcase with him when he showed up.
Not at all.
No.
I mean, I'm not trying to poke too many holes in this, but there were a few times where it felt like they could have. It wasn't a long movie, right? It felt like it moved. It moved along pretty quickly at certain points, and at other points, it lingered in places maybe that it shouldn't have.
Yeah,
but it did feel odd to me that, yeah, the moment she says, like, you're in, he's like, all right, great. Then he's immediately going to the shared bedroom for these 6 students.
yeah,
Maybe he left his bag out in the car just in case he didn't get in.
yeah. Then he was gonna drive down to, I don't know, the next Bible college down the road or something. He was just making the rounds.
You don't want to look too eager when you show up for your college admissions interview.
It was kind of like he's going to a convent, you know, like leave all of your worldly possessions at the door type situation.
So that the habit in this convent is a pair of white boxer briefs that they all wear that are matching. And all designer brands, but all different designer brands. Did anybody else notice that
Absolutely.
detail?
Yeah.
I remember we had
Fubu
Fubu
ones
Yeah,
really
there was
stuck out.
Fubu.
I think there was a Calvin Klein, but I could just be like memory holing that. But definitely Fubu stuck out. It was featured front and center here.
Actually, come to think of it, guys who are very muscular, who are just hanging out in underwear and socks, is very common in his movies. I wonder if he has some kind of deal with underwear companies or something. Fruit of the Loom, whatever.
So if it's not clear already, listeners, this is a bit of a movie with some sexual undertones, we could say, if I'm being generous. This is a bit of a kinky movie. And I've got to say, I noticed some things about David DeCoteau. A long time ago, without even knowing who he was, I watched some movie on Netflix that was about like aliens. And it just like, I was watching it like with my sister. We were like teens and it was like, oh, this looks stupid. Let's put it on. And I recognized the house in it from A Talking Cat. I was like, and I didn't know who David DeCoteau was at the time, but I was like, holy shit, I just watched this movie, A Talking Cat. And like, this is the same mansion that's in that movie. So it's got to be the same guy. And it was about alien abductions. And in like multiple points in the movie, young men were strapped to a table in just their underwear and like an alien was examining them. And I'm noticing that maybe there could be a reason why this is a motif in David DeCoteau's film. Maybe there's something about a young man strapped to a table being held down while another person is sort of examining him could be, let's just say, a point of fascination for David DeCoteau.
For viewers like me.
Yeah. I was actually thinking of you, Scott, just like in the way that you can sometimes watch like 3 or 4 movies a day, just sitting very seriously, taking in Voodoo Academy and then like popping out the DVD and then putting in like Ring of Darkness or whatever. Yeah. And just like, I was like, this is great. The staff at Voodoo Academy, not a very big team. It's mostly just the 2 of them.
The 2 people, Mrs. Bouvier.
And of course, the Reverend Carmichael. We start to learn about the Reverend's teaching, because that's the thing. This isn't just like a Bible college for the Bible. This is Reverend Carmichael's spin on the Bible. And this to me is one of the most interesting parts of the movie. Can we try to unpack the Carmichael theology here? Like what's going on with that?
I really want to be able to unpack this. I was just as fascinated this time watching it as the last 2 times for this. Something that I would normally consider to be a really drawn out scene. I think totally works. Basically, Christopher's first day of class here has all 6 of the young men sitting in what is sort of like a sanctuary type of like a small sanctuary. And he's explaining his version of Christianity, which is the Neurocystic Christianity Church.
I'm Reverend Hollis Carmichael, founder of the Neurocystic Christianity Church, as well as this facility for alternative Bible studies.
I'm a huge advocate of your work, Reverend.
Good.
That he invented, founded by Reverend Hollis Carmichael himself. And what it is he has developed a way with some kind of futuristic confessional booth to eradicate your sins out of your body, to purify you through science.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. So you're saying that old Rusty, the musclehead, is gonna go into that booth back there, and then this huge magnet's gonna like unkink all the kinks in his soul?
Pretty much.
It sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
That's a good point. There were some similarities here, I thought, to Scientology in a way that I wasn't really expecting.
It's kind of like the C-meter in Scientology.
The movie referenced Scientology a couple times. At one point, they refer to Reverend Carmichael as a low-rent L. Ron Hubbard.
A dime store.
A dime store L. Ron Hubbard.
As if his novels were sold anywhere else.
Yeah, as if L. Ron Hubbard was not dime store L. Ron Hubbard. But I agree with you, Snoopy. Yeah, they reference the E-meter. They reference L. Ron Hubbard and this idea of using, in this case, electricity to have a machine that allows you to like confess and therefore purify your soul.
They reminded me of organ chambers. Orgone chambers.
Yeah. That was another thing that came to mind. Do you know much about those?
Not really.
No.
I, for some reason, have multiple screenshots of pictures of orgone chambers on my phone because it's just like a chair in a box lined with tinfoil. I do know it's the person who the Kate Bush cloud busting music video is based off of.
Oh, Wilhelm Reich?
Yeah, Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah.
And his famous scream.
Yeah. He changed movies forever with his famous Wilhelm scream and his orgone chamber. No, you're right. It's the orgone chamber itself is really just like a metal lined box with an average chair in it. And the purpose of it is to collect orgone.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Do I have that?
I'm reading from Wikipedia. Obviously.
You get that. Well, it's found in a lot of seed oils.
Oh no.
It's a massless, omnipresent substance similar to luminiferous ether.
Oh no. I just bought a bunch of that from the store. That's bad for you?
But more closely associated with living energy than with inert matter.
Okay. How much of that can I consume and use the orgone chamber every day?
Yeah.
Well,
people often
good,
describe
actually.
me as inert energy in the streets and living matter in the sheets.
Well, apparently, it might be good, actually. It says Reich argued that deficits in bodily orgone were at the root of many diseases, most prominently cancer. So maybe you want orgone.
Oh, you want orgone?
Yeah, we want it now, actually.
It feels like every 5 years they're like, oh, smoking's bad for you. Just kidding, it's good for you. Orgone's bad for you. Just kidding, it's good for you.
People who drink one glass of orgone in the evening before bed, it increases your lifespan.
Oh, the masks work. Just kidding, the masks don't work.
Wait, does the chamber help you retain your orgone?
I believe so. Obviously, this wasn't something I thought to research before the episode, but looking at it now, it does appear to me that Reverend Carmichael's confessional booth, there is an orgone accumulation element in it.
Interesting.
But, Snoopy, what did you think about this take on the Catholic confession? Because it was a bit perverse.
Yeah, the theology of the Neurocystic Christian Church is light on Christ. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, and I brought this up before we started recording, but I wanted to make sure we touched on it. When Christopher Sawyer is brought to the college and is admitted, he's told that, you're so great, you're perfect for the school. And he said, yeah, I just love the Reverend's writings. And they never talk about what those writings are.
Yeah.
And then when the Reverend is kind of explaining what his beliefs are, what his theology is, it's completely lacking substance too. It's bad story. I don't want to say bad storytelling, but it seems like they didn't really do the work of trying to figure out what this was supposed to actually be before they just started building set pieces.
Yeah, 100%. Some notes I did take down. I tried to take down basically like any note about the specific of the teaching, which, of course is like giving them a lot of credit, but it's Neurocystic Christianity Church. He says that man is the creation of God and science is the creation of God. So therefore, the higher tech you can get, basically, the more advanced your technology, the closer you can get to God consciousness, is what he says.
Is this evidenced in any way by the surroundings of the school itself? Everything is decorated in like 1950s style furniture, and
except for this one like meat grinder confessional booth that has like electromagnetic pulse generators like lined on top of it.
And the only time we see inside the confessional booth, we don't really see what's in there, right? We just see a student like getting so worked up with energy that he like undoes his as the Reverend is like egging him on to basically this is like a peep show booth. Yeah. And as the Reverend is like egging him on to confess his sins, he starts getting naked and touching himself.
Right.
So the technology is not really there, is it? Or are we just like supposed to assume that it's there?
Yeah, we're definitely supposed to assume. And I do remember, again, I understand that the story is very tenuous to like accommodate for the scenes of boys writhing and being dominated by, a man of the cloth. But I do remember at one point, Chris he's familiar with the Reverend's writings. He's like, I'm a fan of the Reverend's writings. But yet when he gets to the church and the Reverend's like, this is my confessional booth, Chris is like,
I don't remember anything about a confessional in any of Reverend Carmichael's writings.
But even though it seems like pretty foundational to his work in the movie, it's about the only thing they have, really.
Yeah, that and the voodoo.
Right.
The actual voodoo at the academy. To your point earlier, Snoopy, I really do wonder what the writings are. It seems like it would be a fun fan fiction project. The fan fiction of Reverend Carmichael's nonfiction.
Right.
Gonna make that zine.
Yeah, there's another genre of film where specific details about aspects of the plot are kind of glossed over in favor of slow close-up scenes of bodies, nude, perhaps maybe semi-nude. I forgot what it's called, but yeah.
Yeah, we could safely call this a genre of film, I think. And as the film goes on, we might be drawing our ideas of what genre that could be. So, we have, although it's in a pretty Christian setting that sort of randomly mixes like Catholic and Protestant symbols to create the vibe of this is a Christian place.
Yes.
And we learn about this like almost like transhuman idea of like tech that can approach God consciousness. The other mystical element that ties this together is voodoo. After all, we are in a voodoo academy. And I thought it was very interesting how quote unquote voodoo concepts were considered very real in the mythology of this movie.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought like that's the thing. There is like actual religion in this. Like it basically does suggest that Christianity is real still, because ultimately they're trying to, this is more of an end of the movie spoiler or whatever, but ultimately they are trying to contact Satan and like get in legion with Satan.
Yeah, and voodoo is an instrument that allows them to do that. I believe at one point Mrs. Bouvier reveals that her late husband discovered some kind of Haitian zombie powder.
Yeah.
That she was famous
Did
for.
they ever explain what that was?
That detail came way out of left field.
Yeah. And Chris knew about it. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, wasn't your husband famous for the zombie powder or something like that?"
It seemed like they were setting it up that you would later see the zombie husband or something. But then they just never, the zombie powder never came back.
Right.
They didn't have time. The film was jam-packed.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit more about the blending of, amongst other things, the blending of like Catholic and Protestant imagery, because the Reverend is wearing like a priest's outfit, like fully priested out, but they're like the crosses are all crosses. They're not crucifixes. There wasn't, I don't think, a crucifix hanging anywhere in that house that I could remember. And if there were, they weren't as prominent, right?
Yeah, not that I can think of.
Yeah, there were no depictions of Jesus in this film.
Yeah.
I don't believe Jesus was ever referenced, ever shown.
There are crosses with like the stars of David in the middle of them.
Yeah. Another odd element, like the core, like, or not the core, like, but the surface elements of Christianity are there. But yeah, it almost seems like it stops when you open the door to the confessional booth. Like maybe that was an allusion to the fact that below the surface of this Christian religion is something deep and sinister, something much more complicated.
Perhaps.
That is an interesting point that they never mentioned Jesus at all. What do y'all think about this sheer concept of being able to figure out the science behind saving someone's soul?
See, I thought that was one of the most intriguing parts of the whole movie. And it's like, obviously this in some ways is a silly plot put together to, justify some like a sort of religious like tension, softcore stuff. That being said, I was really, really intrigued by, and I remember, Scott, when you were initially pitching this movie to me as something I should see, you were like, yeah, he's like extracting like the energy from confessions and like sort of like harnessing soul power, like using like real power to purify the soul. And I like the idea. I mean, isn't that like the biggest fantasy of not just this movie, but almost all of the Christian films we watch? Like the fantasy that you can observe God in, with the naked eye, basically. Mm-hmm. Like you can, like in, for instance, that movie, The Girl Who Believes in Miracles, that Julian and I watched. It's like, it's just your very wholesome, like, you know, typical Christian film about a little girl who is able to do miracles. And, you know, it turns out she's dying and like blah, blah, blah. And so she's able to like harness her like beautiful soul to make miracles manifest. And it's like, is that inherently sacrilegious? You know, just on its face? Like, I thought that this movie and that were sort of asking the same questions.
At least pretending to up front, since he's
Sure.
actually... You know what, though? I was thinking about that, too. Like, the fact that, like... Do you think he was, like, actually into a Christian church before he got into the voodoo game? If his writings are so impactful?
There's kind of the implication that he is like being led astray by Mrs. Bouvier.
Yeah.
And as we learn I don't know how much we want to give away before we really get to what happens at the end of the movie, but like Mrs. Bouvier takes on this appearance of a demon, essentially.
Yeah.
And even though like the Reverend's going along with it the whole time, and at one point he's like, Mrs. Bouvier is not even there, and he's still doing this stuff. But yeah, there is that does bring an interesting question in like, is it like they're Christians who are like perverted by evil, or are they just like using Christianity as like a shield or something to...
I got the impression that he was perhaps in like the underground shirtless tickling film industry before. Yeah. Before
coming
please laugh.
to, I mean, it was a plausible enough theory that I didn't even take it as a joke at first.
We're talking about the Reverend, not the director of the film, right?
Yeah. Well, both are plausible.
Well, it's just like if I had to pick, I would say that he might be a Christian who was led astray and perverted by evil into doing such things. Because, again, I think that he was being perverted by... What's really perverting him is like the fantasy that you can test God, you know, that you can measure God's power and you can see it in a way that's like tangible and physical rather than belief.
If you're trying to measure God's power in a way that's tangible and physical beyond belief, you might be a Christian who was led astray.
I mean, what do you think, Snoopy, is there a way like you can what do you think about like the idea of like physically observing God or spirit or something like that?
I mean, it's something that from like a scriptural standpoint that like it does happen that it makes God's self like physically present, right? And observable. But it's said like multiple places in the Bible, like don't put God to the test, and don't try to, you know, this is not your power to harness. So kind of don't bother, which brings into question like, okay, so why do we baptize people? Why do we do anything that supposedly what sacrament isn't in some way trying to lead people to this, you know, or like act as God's power in people's lives when God is the one that could be doing all the work. But I don't know if the film is trying to go that deep into it.
Of course not. No, that's
I
our
don't
job.
think. Yeah, I don't think so. But it's still making us think about that. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up because where is the line though? How do you DeCoteau the line?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's the confessional booth. And the sort of theology behind, or his idea behind the weird confessional booth that he has this sort of baptismal element to it, and the fact that like the people that leave the booth are like their clothing is like partially off, and they kind of look all their hair is all mussed up and stuff. Like there is that kind of element of like, oh yeah, I'm like physically changed forever, not just within, but like from the outside too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, where is the line? Where are we trying to make ourselves messengers of God when God has messengers of God's own.
Yeah, and that's something I think about with regards to Catholicism, just because like I didn't grow up Catholic, so there are some things in Catholicism where I find that in Catholicism it does seem like there are people who are sort of moving up the ladder as far as the spectrum between man and God, like saints, like a pope. And I might just not fairly be informed about the doctrine, so I could be getting this all wrong. But I don't know, that as someone who was raised Protestant, that's something that always kind of like bewildered me a little bit, because it was like, how is there like this like transitory phase between man and God,
Right.
That's a very Protestant standpoint, but that's I think probably the best criticism of the Catholic Church that Protestants have is like, why would the Pope be any different than any other people? Like, what is it about the process of like this confirmation as this leader of the church that makes them the Holy Father, of the church, as opposed to just being a pastor?
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of Protestant pastors act like they're popes in and of themselves,
right?
In a very different way, but like they kind of act that way too.
Very much so. But then again, to like play devil's advocate with myself or whatever, just to like see both sides of it. But then I hear about someone like Carlo Acutis, and I'm like, damn, I want to be Catholic. That's so cool. Like, it's cool to have someone who is, a human like me, but whose faith has elevated them to a level that's like almost superhuman in a way, in an aspect of their lives. And it's like, it's aspirational. I feel like I can connect with the idea of this person. Maybe that's a little more real than the idea of God, who's just difficult to comprehend because it's on, he's on such another plane. So I can see the appeal of that as well too,
If you were up to be made a saint, would you want a wax model of your body to be shipped around the world so people could come and observe it and pray
Absolutely.
with it? Okay.
No question in my mind.
That's the weirdest thing to me about that whole thing. It's just
I didn't know that actually.
It is. That's what they're doing with. They're still doing this with that particular saint, Carlos Acutis. Is that how you pronounce it?
I'm just guessing, but yeah, I've been saying Carlo Acutis or Carlo Acutis.
Yeah, there's still people that are going to observe, and I'm really not trying to sound like at all dismissive of this. There's obviously a significance to this that I don't understand at all, but I don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, and although it's much different than this film, which is obviously in itself a very perverse and just like slapdash arrangement of religious themes to make like a fictitious religion, it still had me thinking about stuff like that. Like it was basically what's the literal definition of a confession booth? It's like a room that you go into and it like harvests your sins and teaches you not to sin again, as he says in the film. Isn't that kind of what we like wish a confession booth would do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's the idea, right? That your sins are forgiven, and they're forgiven officially.
Right.
In a measurable way, not just in like, oh, I feel better because I told somebody about something wrong that I did that was weighing on my heart, and like I felt guilty about it, but rather there's some transformative power to this. Unfortunately, like the only transformations that we see in this movie are people being turned into voodoo dolls.
Yeah, great point. What is actually the master plan of the good reverend and his assistant, who might really be his boss, Ms. Bouvier?
She's definitely really his boss.
And they're trying to create 6 voodoo dolls to appease a demon whose name I forget.
I think it's Pacuto.
He tried to tap into Makuto, into the ritual of turning the sacrificial virgins into dolls to give Makuto their innocent souls to feed upon in exchange for Makuto's power over the dead. But science ruined it all for him, and in the end Makuto was very displeased. And so I carried on the good work.
And that way they'll be able to be in communication with the devil? We tried to find out who Picudo was, and we only found the only Google result that we could find was a link to the script to Voodoo Academy. So it's a little unclear who or what Picudo is, but he is referred to by name.
Wait, how layered is the
on a first
deception
name
then?
basis?
Maybe
What's that?
Picudo is like, or like whoever told her about Picudo, it's like the same thing with Reverend Carmichael saying like, oh yeah, it's a new type of Christianity. Like they're also lying about the type of voodoo it is.
Oh yeah. They went to like
point.
Yeah, they went to Haiti or something, and then like they found some tribe who just gave them like a thing of powdered sugar and were like, yeah, this is the voodoo powder, and you got to pray to Picudo, and he'll have you talk to the devil. And then they went back and they were like, we found it, we did it. It's possible.
It does something, but there's no Picudo.
It reminds me of those like TikTok cooking things where like the people will just like, here's my spin on fajitas or whatever.
Right.
And it's like I use hot dog buns, tomato sauce.
Yeah. TikTokified voodoo
Yeah.
and Christianity.
Here's my spin on voodoo. You start with Picudo.
Oh, are there any TikTok confessional booths? That would be like a good fit for the format.
Oh, wow. You could have split screen. You could have like the person playing the priest on one side.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the person could be like confessing their sins.
Wait, is this like where you duet?
that.
You
Yeah,
duet
we have to
a
do
video where someone
Yes.
is like, I'm on a bad date, and this girl is like rolling her eyes and like sighing, and then,
Exactly.
but instead it's a priest.
It's a priest.
Your sins are forgiven, son. Your sins are
Yes.
forgiven.
I hope someone does that. If not, then I might have to.
All you need is the right gimmick on TikTok. I'm convinced.
It's so true. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Anybody can do it.
Get the handle Reverend Carmichael at Reverend Carmichael.
Yeah. And the specific method by which they turn these strapping young men into voodoo dolls is basically that, and this changes sort of at random throughout the movie, but basically they go into the confession booth. They are purified mostly by Reverend Carmichael asking them, do you touch yourself at night? Show me how you touch yourself at night.
Yeah.
They do that for a while. They're purified.
One of them was like sucking on the cross.
On the cross. That was very perverse.
Yeah.
And then the Ms. Bouvier gives them a glass of wine to drink. And then this makes them writhe around in their bed at night wearing only a pair of FUBU underwear.
Yes. To be clear, we have already seen how they touch themselves at night.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're always at like half mast
Yeah.
too. Very clearly.
Oh, yeah. And then one by one, Ms. Bouvier kind of chooses one of them who sleepwalks up to Ms. Bouvier's chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And, seems like they're going to have sex. But they never seem to get all the way there before the strapping young man is tied down to a table and is, writhing around in submission.
Completely cock blocked by Reverend.
By Picudo.
Picudo.
At which point their soul is exchanged and their head appears on a small voodoo doll.
And the body disappears.
It's crazy.
The body does seem to disappear.
It looks like
it just disappears.
It looks like a Sega CD game or something.
Yes. Yeah, it looks great.
The one thing that's also funny about the voodoo dolls is they can't like say words, even though
they make little noises.
We watched ours
like a baby.
Yeah. There's one. So we ended up renting it on Amazon and we watched it with English subtitles. And there's one of them where I don't know if this is true or not, but the first one, the only subtitle it credits with the voodoo doll is he just goes, man. And after that, there's no attempt at being like, no, help me or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, meh.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a bad dream. Like they're distraught, but they like can't say words anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually kind of disturbing to see. I feel like if I had been younger and seen this, I would be like, that would be like a haunting image.
If you'd have been younger and you would have seen this, you'd be gay now.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
This was, I don't know how much we want to touch on this, but I feel like there's an inherently like straight element to this movie, as gay as it is, and it is very gay. The like character with all the power is this like over sexualized woman who like has enormous breasts and like wears this like lingerie thing when she does this evil thing that she like. The whole thing is very this like paradoxical. So in the same way that the faith is like not really Christian, but it kind of is. This movie is like not really gay, but it kind of is gay. It's like gay, but it's not. I don't know.
Honestly, the attempts at any sort of like heterosexualization in this film only made it seem about 1,000 times more gay.
I agree.
That the woman is like taking advantage of these young men and then literally turns into like a demon at the end.
Yeah, totally. I think that may have been by design. I thought it was like classic gay misogyny in like, we all worship this woman. Okay, so she's a stand-in for like Katy Perry or whoever.
Yeah.
We all worship this one like very sexy, elevated woman who we demand appear scantily clad, although that actually doesn't really figure into how we feel about her. And she's also literally the devil, and the only reason she exists is to be a conduit for us to writhe around for each other.
It just reminds me of like, older gay men who hate their mothers.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I think that was, whether by design or just he literally couldn't help but make that type of movie because that's, just what naturally flows out of him.
Yeah.
He did some like David Lynch style transcendental meditation, and like this is just what came out of the root of his consciousness. And it was Voodoo Academy. And, I think it was, even though it was ostensibly a completely heterosexual movie, it obviously was not.
Yeah. It's better than that fucking talking monkey thing that David Lynch did a couple of years ago.
Wait, what was that?
That we can all agree on.
I thought at first you were talking about the Amazing Ape movie that Scott watched about the raw food, the raw vegan ape who cures the kid's cancer by feeding him bananas or whatever.
Oh man, I can't wait until I figure out how that makes sense to cover on this podcast.
Yeah, we'll tell you all about that one, Snoopy. But one random bit of Boys Bible Study trivia I wanted to point out is that the actor who plays Rusty, who is the slightly more muscular guy who's depicted as the bodybuilder, he is in the Genius Club, which we coincidentally also watched with Snoopy.
I did not make that connection.
I didn't either. In fact, I still don't recognize him. I can't figure out like who he is in the Genius Club. Like it lists his character name, and I just lost my phone. I don't know where. Even though I've been sitting in one place the entire time we've been talking. But I looked up. It's because the Genius Club by necessity has like 12 different characters whose names we will never remember because they're just all sitting in a room talking to each other. And I couldn't figure it out who he played in that movie. I'm going to look it up right now. Maybe you all can help me. But yeah, Rusty was played by Huntley Ritter.
Huntley Ritter was the
he was the muscly one. And in Genius Club he plays Brian Melman.
Oh, who could forget a name like that?
Yeah, who could forget the iconic character of Brian Melman from the Genius Club?
Oh, he was in Bring It On, too.
Okay, you know what? Also funny, there's multiple cast members from Bring It On in this movie, which kind of makes sense because they're all like himbos who were trying to have acting careers in the year 2000. Another weird trivia I found is that, so Huntley Ritter plays a character named Les in Bring It On. And then another one of them also played a character called Les in a different teen movie. It was something really stupid. Oh, yeah. And fucking Riley Smith plays the character Les in Not Another Teen Movie. So there's all these weird connections.
The year
centering
after
around
Video Academy.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in Bring It On. He was in Not Another Teen Movie. Also, I'm just now fact dumping, but he was also in this movie Motocrossed, which was a movie that my sister loved.
Yeah.
In like 2001. That's the movie about...
The movie's great.
That Disney movie about like the woman who like cuts her hair so she can pretend to be a boy so she can compete in motocross races.
Yeah.
Which is like a movie that a lot of, preteen girls of my sister's age like loved in 2001. So yeah, that was also the year after this movie. He was in like Disney movie Motocrossed, and
wow.
Yeah, before that he was writhing around on FUBU underwear and looking through peepholes and getting his back rubbed by a priest in a bathtub. And
oh yeah, speaking of the bathtub, there is one bathtub in the house and they all have to take turns taking baths in it.
And they usually just all hang out in the bathroom while they're doing it.
Yeah, it looks like it's in the middle of a room with no curtain of any kind. It's just an exposed tub. One of the spirit capturings happens in the tub.
Yeah.
Most of them happen on the operating table, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that scene was really funny because the priest was literally like, or Reverend Carmichael was literally like, yeah, Miss Bouvier says we can speed this along.
I came back just for you. What are you doing, Reverend? Mrs. Bouvier wanted me to speed things up just a bit. Don't worry, it won't hurt.
Like he like basically says that exact line as he just completely changes the course of the plot of the movie and just like spirit cooks this boy in a bathtub. Yeah, he's like, oh, okay, let's move this thing along.
It's like how you can like cook fish in a dishwasher.
Yeah,
or whatever.
in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, the science checks out. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
It does. Electromagnetic healing. I wrote down in my notes, the Reverend, he comes up with new stuff all the time. That's seen as like a plus in this movie. You enroll in an experimental Bible college and the guy who's teaching you everything is just constantly winging it.
That's the problem with tenure.
For me, that would not be a selling point, but maybe I'm just not open-minded enough. I don't know.
So you would be the one whose parents forced you to go?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're all like serious about Bible college, except the one guy, I forget his name, but he said that his parents are big revivalists, and it was either there or Jesus Land in Florida.
So why are you here?
Well, my parents are those big revivalist nuts. It was either this or they're gonna send me down to that Jesus Land in Florida. God. I wanted to be a doctor, but, that's kind of tough when both your parents believe that the only kind of medicine is faith healing.
He wanted to be a doctor.
They're big revivalists, so they send him to a school that specializes in a complete bastardization of Christianity.
Well, they were taken with his writings. They didn't know about the confessional booth.
Yeah.
Right. The end of the film. What even happens really? I mean, it's not exactly important.
They throw the voodoo wine on the demon lady and the Reverend, and that turns for some reason that instantly turns the two of them into like a two-headed voodoo doll.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Which is great.
And
does the bottle explode or it breaks or something?
Yeah, it like smashes and she's like, no.
Part of what happens though is that they're all supposed to be virgins, and he's like, there's only one thing. I'm not a virgin, or however he says it.
Right.
Which is not explained at all.
And it may not be true. He could be lying.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does reveal that he's apparently not a virgin, which is a big no-no if you're trying to get into the Carmichael Bible College.
No.
Do you think that was on the admissions paperwork?
Well, this is her fucking fault for breezing through the interview process.
That's a good
Really
we watched the entire interview, and she did not ask him once if he was a virgin.
Yeah. Because the Reverend is like, they were supposed to be pure or whatever.
Right.
She's like, I've seen enough. There's no way this guy's had sex before.
Yeah. And I believe the final shot is the two-headed voodoo doll. But then the last line of the movie is like, there's like 3 of the boys are left, and the funny one just goes like, is this going to be on the final? And that's like his reaction to the fucking, this whole crazy like voodoo demon lab.
Yeah. It's a Voodoo Academy, folks.
Yeah. But honestly, what more did you need to see?
I saw everything I wanted to see.
And more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were rewinding a lot during this movie.
I was frequently telling, hey, Julian, can you leave the room for like 12 to 15 minutes?
I can't think of a time I've seen a peephole and a cross before either. That was new.
That was very new. Snoopy, do you ever watch sort of smut films like this?
This was very similar to Benedetta.
There was some Benedetta-esque qualities to it, but no, I was curious because I definitely wanted you to see this film because of its perverse theology, but then I was like, obviously I know you can handle yourself, but I was like, I don't know if Snoopy enjoys watching like softcore gay porn. I don't know.
I'm a prude.
Sure.
But I wasn't shocked.
Of course, yeah.
It definitely was the closest thing to porn that I've seen in a very long time.
Good for you.
But it was, that was not the most appalling thing about the movie. I think the sacrilege was the most appalling thing about the movie.
Totally, yeah.
The casual sacrilege.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I guess one of the other probably sexier films that we watched for the show was Benedetta. Did you get to see that one yet, Snoopy?
No, I haven't seen it.
Highly recommend. I think you'll really enjoy it. It definitely has a very strong sexual elements in the film, but it's really fascinating and very religiously sound. Not that it doesn't have its sacrilegious moments, but it is a very like tightly constructed, like uses, a very thorough investigation of its religious themes to draw power into the story. Whereas this one is like, I don't know, voodoo powder, Scientology, orgone capturing, like blah, 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 whatever,
But is it based in a college dormitory?
Sort of. Definitely a convent, it's a bit of a shared, same gender housing experience.
It's more of a sorority than anything.
Yeah, it's a sorority film.
Hey, this is the same. Yeah. The same director as Sorority House Massacre, or crap, am I getting that title right? It's really good.
If you throw a dart, then you could put a couple words together and come up with one of the 300 films that David DeCoteau's directed.
Hold on, I just got to look at my letterbox list. Fave DeCoteau's. Sorority Slaughterhouse. Sorority Slaughterhouse.
What are your fave DeCoteau's?
Oh,
you telling me a guy who made this movie made a movie where they murder a bunch of women?
Not only that, but it's Eric Roberts doing the voice of an evil doll that he is embodied.
That's cool.
That's so cool.
My most recent fave DeCoteau is Time Babes, aka Test Tube Teens in the year 2000. And it takes place it starts in 2019, and sex has been outlawed in the United States of America, is now called the corporate states of America because a corporation bought out the United States massive debt.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
That actually sounds sick.
It sounds so sick.
Really
and
good.
Also he's pretty close to what's happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
It could happen any day. He might only just be a couple years off.
It might have already happened. I don't know.
Right. Any other fave DeCoteaus before we give
well, if you want to get
rating?
into the wrong movies, I highly recommend The Wrong Valentine and The Wrong Real Estate Agent. That's the reason that those were the first two I mentioned, is because they're the first two at the top of my mind. But most of those are pretty fun.
There's a sequel to this movie.
Oh yeah, Voodoo Academy 2.
It's not Voodoo Academy 2. It's 2: Voodoo Academy.
Oh, that's really cool. That's so dope.
I have not seen that, but I read a review by the user who goes by James, who I'm a big fan of, and he said the shower scenes are a little long, but otherwise still pretty fun.
That's not like DeCoteau.
David? Is it also by David DeCoteau?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
You know, he knows how to make a movie.
He does.
He
made Witch House,
It's the West
Creepazoids,
answer to Takashi
Killer
Miike.
actually, okay, well, not Miike, but this movie did kind of remind me of who's the director who did Love Exposure?
Oh, I forget his name.
Yeah, this kind of gave me Love Exposure vibes because of the whole second act of the movie takes place in this like cults building.
Oh, yeah,
you know, and there's this sort of mystery religion that takes place in this like cult building. I'm blanking on the director's name, but
Cyan Sono. I never saw Love
Sono.
Exposure, but I've been meaning to for a while.
Oh,
Just
it's
very,
fucking dope.
very long.
Extremely dope.
It's really long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We were talking about that one, Snoopy.
Yeah. That's an interesting watch.
Oh, it's so dope. But yeah, anything else to say about Voodoo Academy before we give this the official BBS and Snoopy rating?
I liked that someone talked about them being in a spiritual pissing contest early on.
Guys, does anyone care if the new guy gets in the discussion?
I wish it was a discussion. It's more like a spiritual pissing contest.
Because I feel like that does kind of happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, that's like something that can happen, struggles among people, power struggles among people that happen in like organized spiritual settings where it's clear that like spiritual debates are just pretense for, like childish power struggles. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Well, what do you say? Should we give this movie a rating?
Yeah, it was a smart, sexy thriller that had me on the edge of my seat, and I couldn't but help but notice that the pages of Ash's notebook for this movie are stuck together. I'll give it a 6 out of 6 morning woods.
Yeah, perfect score. If you ask me.
In FUBU underwear.
As for me, I've got to say, this might be DeCoteau's masterpiece. I almost like this one as much as Ring of Darkness, which I assumed that would be my favorite DeCoteau because it's basically the exact same movie as this one, except for instead of in a Bible college, they're in a boy band. It's like, they're all in Eiffel 65. But they also are being pulled together for the sake of doing some kind of ritual that involves having like 5 boys together. And there's original song. Well, there's just one song actually that they keep repeating over and over again. So I thought that one was made just for me to enjoy. And then I watched this one and I was like, well, this one was made just for me to enjoy. So I liked them all. But yeah, I've got to give Voodoo Academy DeCoteau's masterpiece, his 7 Samurai, I'm going to have to give Voodoo Academy OT3 out of OT3 because this was finally a sexy Scientology movie. If Battlefield Earth wasn't doing it for you, then watch Voodoo Academy, which I don't really think was endorsing Scientology, but it was probably the best ad for it I've ever seen. So that's what I say.
Yeah, I know I said this when we were watching it yesterday, but now you know what it's like to be a straight man and watch any other movie.
Well, I am a big fan of almost every David DeCoteau movie I've seen, but this one has really stood out in my memory for very obvious reasons. In this case, I came for the small hands-on Bible college experience. I stayed for the voodoo, and I left with all the kinks in my soul unkinked. And for that, I'm going to give this one case of voodoo wine. 6 out of 6 bottles of voodoo wine. Ooh, perfect
Slap
movie.
that bag.
Loved it.
Perfect score. What did you say, Snoopy?
I laughed and I cried and I feared for my eternal soul. I give it 5 out of 5 crosses with peepholes in them. And it makes me want to go look up other masterpieces from this director, like Bad Boys Dormitory and Man Heat. I can't wait to see more.
I can't wait to see Man Heat. Yeah, adding that one to the queue.
That's the all-male remake of Michael Mann's Heat.
Finally, a Michael Mann film without all the pesky women in it. Oh, man. Well, Snoopy, thanks so much for coming back to our show. We love having you. You bring a real scriptural foundation to our film discussion. We appreciate it immensely.
I was honored to come back on, and I had a really good time.
After watching this film, Snoopy sent me this prayer that you had found in a book of yours. I'm not sure what book. You should let us know. And I was like, this would be very fitting to end the show with. We should make sure that the air is cleared before we get out of here today. Would you mind reading it for us?
I'd be happy to. I actually found this on TikTok. So
oh, great. Perfect.
This is a prayer for breaking curses. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ of Nazareth, by the power of his cross, his blood, and his resurrection, I take authority over all curses, hexes, spells, voodoo practices, witchcraft assignments, satanic rituals, incantations, and evil wishes that have been sent my way or have passed down the generational bloodline. I break their influence over my life by the power of the risen Lord Jesus Christ, and I command these curses to go back to where they came from and be replaced with a blessing. And all God's people said, Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out.
Well, everyone who hasn't already, please check out Snoopy's podcast. Trans Regret Snoopy presents the Bible, a very illuminating Bible study podcast with a very cool roster of guests over the months and years it's been out. So I highly recommend. Also, on our side of things, I must remind everyone listening, if it's your first time here, please go to boysbiblestudy.com. You can subscribe to our show, get links to all of the places where our show is found online. So check it out if you want to hear more. And if you really like what we do and you want to support us, get access to even more contents, go to patreon.com/boysbiblestudy. If you subscribe for $5 a month or more, you get a Boys Bible Study new episode every single Sunday. So highly recommend. Also, special shout outs to our patron saints at the $20 tier. Thank you so much for your generous support. Nicole, Marissa, Jeff, Jane, Kara, and Rats. Our outro music is Oh My God by Mary. From all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, our guest today, Trans Regret Snoopy, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you. Do you know that they say, and with your spirit now? In Catholic Mass, they don't say and also with you. Yeah, I grew up, it was and also with you. Now they say and with your spirit. It's the strangest fucking, I can't even do it. I can't.
That's so weird.
I can't do it.
No,
I can't.
They tell you that
I'm a Catholic
masks work,
conservative.
and then they tell you that masks don't work. And, you sure you haven't been Mandela affected?
Maybe I was.
The Pope changed it to Berenstain Bears.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day you take